This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Jason of House Ross, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam, the Young Bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, the Ghost of Harrenhal, a Bannerman Has No Name, Lord Thanos of House Titan, Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, and Sir Dustin of House Walls.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're discussing Chapter 54, Daenerys 6 of A Game of Thrones. And in Fire and Blood, we will be discussing the Dying of the Dragons, the Red Dragon, and the Gold.
Yes. Man, Sir Ezra, it seems like we've been recording a lot lately. It's all becoming kind of a blur, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. We've even posted stuff in different order than what we recorded it, so it's all like
I know, it's like all over
the place, man. But I don't know. We're having a blast. I mean, we're absolutely having a blast because so many cool things have come just into Raven's Nest, and we found some cool theories. We've been working on some theories. Plus, we've just got show news, run times, all sorts of crazy stuff.
We've done musings, we've done bonus episodes, we've done bonus Patreon stuff. I did a Let's Play of one of the Game of Thrones games on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're just getting after it, man. But I'm
great.
excited about today's episode. This is a good Daenerys chapter. Fire and Blood is thick.
Yes.
Per usual, there's going to be a lot to break down there as we go through the dance of the dragons. So Sir Ezra, how's it going, man?
Well, it's going well. I hate to even say this, but Sir Ezra, is taking a little spring break right now, friends.
Wow. Must be nice.
What a jerk. What jerk would come on the podcast and say something like that? That is just garbage, man. But no, that's part of why we're just cranking out some work. We're trying to get some things ahead here and, really turn things up a notch. Getting ready for some of the cons that I'm going to be going to in April. I've got a couple. I'll be at Star Wars Celebration, and then I'll be at Ice and Fire Con right when I come back. Literally, I think it's the following weekend or something like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then, I got some other special things coming up here in the summer. I might be going to a couple conventions and maybe making a trip out west soon too. You never know. So
yeah, we have an archery contest to schedule.
Yes,
and a
we
drinking
do.
contest.
Yeah,
but you know what? Let's just make them both at the same time.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to.
The idea is we'll take a shot, and then Sir Ezra will shoot the apple off my head.
Yeah.
I'll take a shot. He'll shoot the apple off my head, and then the podcast will be over.
Yeah,
I guess we'll both be dead.
Gosh, yeah, that would be terrible. We'll film it for you guys. It'll be a last goodbye. All right. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Well, we are only weeks away from winter.
Yeah.
Puxatawny Phil was wrong because winter is still coming.
Yeah.
And we are only weeks away. Yeah. Every day, man, we just get closer and closer to season 8, and I just get more and more excited.
Yeah. No kidding. It's building. We've got Ravens too about season 8, quite a few, and we have to, I guess, as we get closer to the show, kind of shift our focus to be a little more show heavy. I started my rewatch. Started at season 4. I kind of cheated, but whatever.
That's okay.
It's one of the best seasons. So,
I'm currently in season 4, about to finish, get to season 5. There's so many things I noticed when I watched season 4. That's how I kind of came along with that Night King theory.
Yeah.
I should tell everyone, go watch the scene where the Night King turns Craster's baby into a White Walker.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff in that scene that when I rewatched it the other day, I was like, hold on, do they have it looks like they're going into like a fortress. And then they place him on his table.
Yeah.
And there's all these kind of stones around it. It looks like similar to the place where the Night King got turned into a White Walker. I wonder if that's the same location.
Yeah, I mean, it looks similar Other than all the snow there, right?
Well, yeah,
I'm
right,
kidding,
yeah. Well, because as we
but
know,
the structure,
the White Walkers create a lot of snow,
Yeah.
and ice and cold as they travel.
Right.
Some people were calling me out in the Facebook group for that, but yeah, that's what they do. They bring Jon Snow said they bring the storm.
Yeah, the storms are coming. Yeah, that's for sure. No, but you're right. I did actually. You sent me the clip, and I went and looked at it, and it is kind of weird. It's like either their fortress way up there, or it's it just would love to know a little bit more about what's up there, what it looks like, where they their inhabitants, or if that was the same place. Did it used to always what it's called the land of always winter? So I guess it's always been winter. So I don't know.
Well, as far as the Maesters,
as far as we know, yeah. I mean, so that is cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of new Game of Thrones news, goodies, and stuff coming out. I recently, we haven't done a Gur watch in a while.
Yeah.
It's time to get back into a Gur watch. Check out his Nada blog, see what he's writing about. And none of it pretty much has anything to do with Game of Thrones,
right?
Unfortunately, he posted on his blog where he writes all the time, because we know he's not writing Winds of Winter. He says season 8 approaches, and he just here's the trailer, and that's it. But then he talks about other stuff. It's so he can't work on Winds of Winter, but he can write a page-long essay entitled "Kill Me Now." March 12th, 2019. The Giants have traded Odell Beckham Jr. to the Cleveland Browns. Wow. It's
it's devastating, dude. Here's the thing. What I'm upset about is that don't the Giants know what they're doing to Gurm? You're setting him back.
How many Game of Thrones characters are influenced by his?
There you go.
If the Giants trade Odell Beckham Jr. and he's writing a paragraph about Jon Snow, is he gonna?
Yeah, all of a sudden his mood's different now.
He kills somebody.
He just kills Jon. He's like, you know what? Fine.
Yeah, you know what?
He's he's not coming back.
Let's just do this again.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's crazy. Somebody's got to hit up the Giants and tell them to knock this crap off because, or at least wait
I think he's a Jets and a Giants fan. He's just a fan of kind of both New York teams.
Yeah.
Which is unfair, but is what it is.
That's hilarious. So, someone should go back through the time and look at all of the news and New York football history and see how it's influenced the series.
I bet no one's done it. I bet no one has drawn comparisons. Do it comparisons of his blog and time it up against
when he was writing
chapters. Right.
Oh gosh, that is funny. What was going on when he was writing the Red Wedding? You know what I mean? What was happening in his life?
Well, he's a Giants fan, so I don't know. Maybe he was watching the Super Bowl where they lost to the Ravens.
Wow.
In 2000,
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, all right, screw these guys. Yeah, that sucks.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, that's good. That's good. We got a little action there from Gur. Hopefully he's just done with that book and it's just going through some final, revisions, and it's going to come out later this year. I kind of think it is going to come out this year, but every year I'm hopeful. So, and I've always said, let him be, let him do his thing, let the magic flow, from that mind of his. So.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and head over to our Maester's study. This week we are talking about the dance of the dragons, or the dying of the dragons, the red dragon and the gold.
Yeah.
And strap in because this is kind of long, kind of thick.
Yeah. That's what
hard
she said.
To read.
That's what
yeah.
Well, okay, so I wanted to start, I guess, just, that...
Not if she was with Theon, she didn't.
That's right. That's right. Oh, my gosh. People hate us now, right?
Yeah, I know.
So it says, the dying of the dragons, the red dragon, and the gold. So I thought I would pull up real quickly just before we start this, some information on those two dragons. They're only actually a sliver of this chapter, especially the red dragon. But when we speak about the gold dragon, that is Sunfire, right? So also known as Sunfire the Golden, was a splendid young male dragon. What's funny to me, do we know whether they're male or female? I've heard mixed.
It's interesting, because I've heard there's mixed things talked about them sometimes. Sometimes they reference them as if their sex changes or They don't know. So they don't entirely seem to know. It changes sometimes.
Right. Okay. So yeah, and Sunfire is kind of emerges when we start to talk about King Aegon the Second. Okay, King Aegon the Elder. So according to Archmaester Gildane, he was the most beautiful dragon ever seen upon the earth. Sunfire had gleaming gold scales, which shone like beaten gold in the sunlight, and pale pink wing membranes. His flames were golden as well. Wow, his flames were golden as well. Huge and heavy, Sunfire was a formidable fighter despite his youth. And I said, he has been there on Dragonstone for a bit, but the first rider that we see with him, I believe, is Aegon the second. So there's our gold dragon. Now
the red dragon is Meleys.
Yeah. Meleys, yeah.
Yeah, it's a she dragon ridden by Princess Alyssa Targaryen and Princess
Rhaenys
Targaryen. Yeah, and we'll get to that. Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was.
Yeah. And actually, right, yeah. Well, while we're there, I mean, let's just so folks remember the queen who never was, right? Yeah, the daughter of Prince Aemon Targaryen and Lady Jocelyn Baratheon. She was married to Corlys Valerion of Driftmark, and as you remember, yeah, she was that great council. She's one of those who was passed over for Viserys. So she's just always kind of been there. Probably has a pretty strong claim to but she just over time, she has her kids and she lives out her life there on Driftmark, and but boy, she rides into battle in this chapter, and it's pretty awesome. So. There's a lot in this, so Sir Matt, if you wouldn't mind, we'll just start us off with a reading, and then we'll just dive into this.
Yeah, sorry, I'm ahead in my thing here. The Dance of Dragons entered a new stage after the death of Lucerys Valerion in the Stormlands and the murder of Prince Jaehaerys before his mother's eyes in the Red Keep. For both the Blacks and the Greens, blood called to blood for vengeance. And all across the realm, lords called their banners, and armies gathered and began to march.
Yeah. I mean, so as you remember, like the first blood that was drawn, we kind of talked at the end of the last episode of the last Maester study, just that once this Targaryen blood had been drawn, I mean, the war was on and in full tilt. And so this chapter, the red and the red dragon and the gold, it's a lot of battles. I mean, really is what it is. It's actually just a lot of. There's some cool little tidbits in here, but we're gonna kind of speed through some of it because we'll never get through the whole thing. It'll take us. We could spend 2 hours on this. Honest to God, if not even more. I mean, there's some really cool nuggets here. But yeah, so both sides are looking to marshal their forces. The forces of House Blackwood, which had declared for Rhaenyra, invaded the lands of the Green allied House Bracken. So right away, you had House Blackwood and Bracken. They're always, on opposite sides there, and one house attacks the other just based upon the death of the one of Aegon's children. So you've got people really passionately. I don't know whether they were ordered to strike or what have you, but there's definitely some back and forth right out the gate. Now, what to do? If you're Aegon the Second, what do you do? In this situation, his wife is just. I mean, doesn't she just sort of go into a? Yeah, we talked about that in the last chapter. She goes into a pretty solid, depression. So yeah. So anyways, during this time, they're trying to console her and what have you. But so I'll skip over here a couple paragraphs. Yet it must not be thought that the Green Council was sitting idle. Sir Otto Hightower had been busy as well, winning over lords, hiring sellswords, strengthening the defenses of King's Landing, seeking after other alliances. After the rejection of Grand Maester Orwell's peace overturns the Hand, redoubled his effort, dispatching ravens to Winterfell, the Eyrie, to River Run, White Harbor, Galltown, Bitterbridge, Fair Isle, and 100 other keeps and castles. Riders galloped through the night to holdings closer to hand to summon their lords and ladies to court to do fealty to King Aegon. Sir Otto also reached out to Dorne, whose ruling princess, Corin Martell had once warned against Prince Daemon in the Stepstones. Against Prince Daemon in the Stepstones, but Prince Corin spurned his offer. So you could just see Otto Hightower reaching out. They kind of say that he was trying to win this war with letters. Is actually the way it's described. He's sending off a lot of different letters, trying to get people to help out, rally the forces, and eventually that's not cutting it. So what ends up happening is that Aegon gets rid of him. He actually gets upset, with his with his grandfather, and decides to bring in Sir Criston Cole, which is awesome. So he eventually dismisses his grandfather as Hand of the King and turned to Sir Criston Cole. Sir Criston's first advice to the king was to treat those who denied him fealty as traitors. And so they immediately, you remember when the Green Council first assembled, those who spoke out against Aegon, and were supporting Rhaenyra, they were sent to the dungeons. Although it's claimed that Sir Criston Cole, ended up cutting one of the council members' throats right there on the spot as he tried to leave. But so they drag him out into the Red Keep, and basically, the king's justice takes place. They take a few heads off and put them out in the front so everybody can see. So it's
yeah. And should we talk a little bit about Sir Criston Cole?
Yeah.
Because he is somebody who actually will be a player going down the line. And he's somebody who we've talked about a little bit. He's a name you've probably heard. We talked to him about a little bit about in Fire Blood. He's like a knight from House Cole. He ultimately ends up will make it later down the line to Viserys the First Kingsguard, and he eventually becomes a Lord Commander. And he's somebody who I think Jaime Lannister references a couple of times when just talking about like the history of the Kingsguard. I think he mentions in the season extras, which I've been going through lately.
Oh, really? Okay.
They're actually super cool. We've talked about them a little bit. You should definitely check them out. In the Game of Thrones seasons, they have extras where the characters read lore, and it's obviously more about the books as their character, so it's not just like, oh, I'm, whatever his name is, Nikolai, whatever. But he's reading it as like Jaime Lannister is telling this story, and so it's really cool. And he talks a little bit about him and how he was, a very, very good like knight and stuff like that. So he ends up becoming a big deal. He's kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a quote later. I think it's in World of Ice and Fire where he's talking about like if we ever were to see a bastard on the Iron Throne, they'll turn the Red Keep into a brothel. So he's and then like Aegon II says, like my new hand is a steel fist because he's becoming a hand. And so he's definitely a boss, is as people say. We say a lot. So easy way to put it. Yeah,
he is. I mean, and actually, it's kind of crazy. Like his turning from being Rhaenyra's favorite, whether Rhaenyra actually did disrobe and try to seduce him or whatever, is all a tale that Mushroom tells us. But he's actually a big deal, and he switches sides, and he's with Alicent Hightower, and now he's supporting, Aegon the Second here, and he's now Hand of the King. So, and he does do a good job. I think. Let's see here. One of the first things. Let me just skip on down here a little bit. Sir Criston wasted no time in proving his mettle. Quote, "It is not for you to plead for support from your lords like a beggar pleading for alms," he told Aegon. "You are the lawful king of Westeros, and those who deny it are traitors. It is past time they learned the price of treason." So, he's the one who encourages them to, make this declaration. Like, no, I'm the king. I'm not going to beg you to join me. If you don't, you are a traitor. I'm the one true king. So, he's sitting in King's Landing and, what have you. But he's a pretty cool character. I don't like him because I'm more of a black than I am a green. Okay. But I would love to know which side people are really on, because it is kind of, I like characters on both sides. But, man, I'm kind of a black dragon, my friend. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm also more of a black, and by that I mean black fire. Is really the side I decide to choose upon later as we go down that line. But
yeah. So, all right, just a little bit more here about this new, as they call him, new green hand, right? So they talked about him just being younger. So he only Lords Butterwell, Stokeworth, and Rosby bent the knee. So as they pulled those prisoners up from their cells, only a few of them actually bent the knee to Aegon. The others decided to die. Like, their word meant more to them, and so they were executed. So I think it's Hayford, Mayweather, Hart, Buckler, Cassell, and Lady Fell all remained true to their vows, and so their heads were mounted above the gates of King's Landing. So there you go. Mm-hmm. Now, something that's kind of cool. I love that we get just more about the Kingsguard. So we've got Sir Criston Cole, and we have this duel of the Cargill twins, which is kind of cool. And these twins are identical, and I think that's the cool piece to this. It's very short, but the Kingsguard, is kind of split and divided. Who do you support? Viserys was the king. They were loyal to him. He had declared that Rhaenyra was his the heir apparent, right? I mean, she's his daughter, and it's Alicent who they kind of go against his wishes and use the Council of 101 to propel Aegon II. So what would you do if you're the Kingsguard? You know what I mean? At the time, I think
they're put into a really tough position.
Yeah. So let's see here. Let's read a little bit about this. So the true so you have Sir Eric is sent on a mission. So the true purpose of that mission remains a matter of some contention. Grand Maester Munkin tells us that Cargill had been commanded to slay Rhaenyra. So Sir Eric is actually sent from King's Landing, by the way, to Dragonstone. And he's sent there. He puts on, just simple fisherman garb. He looks very simple and shows up in Dragonstone. And as long as no one sees him next to his brother, they should assume that he is, his brother, and maybe could even give some commands and what have you. So because you've got Sir Eric and Sir Arik. Is that their names? You've got an E and an A. So. Eric and Eric. I don't even know how to.
I think it's like Arik and Eric.
Arik, thank you. Arik and Eric. There you go. So Sir Arik is sent in to, either assassinate the queen or we don't really know, or to just kill one of her sons, Jace or Joffrey, air quote strong. Because again, this is sort of it's a way to retaliate for Aegon II losing one of his children. So Sir Eric came ashore without hindrance, donned his armor and white cloak, had no trouble gaining entrance to the castle in the guise of his twin brother, just as Criston Cole had planned. Deep in the heart of Dragonstone, however, as he was making his way to the royal apartments, the gods brought him face to face with Sir Eric himself, who knew at once what his brother's presence meant. The singers tell us that Sir Eric said, "I love you, brother," as he unsheathed his blade, and that Sir Arik replied, "And I, you, brother," as he drew his own. The twins battled for the best part of an hour. Grand Maester Munkin said, "The clash of steel on sword woke half the queen's court, but the onlookers could only stand by helplessly and watch, for no man there could tell which brother was which." So that was kind of cool, right? You can't even separate them and say, it's just like they didn't know who to side with, So that was tough.
And it's also a battle that is referenced time and time again throughout the series as one of like the most epic sword fights.
Yeah, the singers sing about it. Yeah,
right.
Two brothers in the King's Guard. One's in the Queen's Guard, one's in the King's Guard. Fight to the death here, and they end up mortally wounding each other. I like the tale that the singers sing is that they both kind of, strike at each other and they take each other out almost simultaneously. Whereas Mushroom says one of them suffers from a wound and dies 3 days later and is cursing his brother's name and things like that. I don't think that's happening at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I'm getting a little sick of Mushroom.
I think it was just a pretty epic. Yeah, I don't know. I like him.
I know. I'm just kidding. So that is that. Let's move on a little bit now. I think we're about to jump into what would be Rook's Roost a little bit, or Rook's Rest, excuse me, Duskendale and so on. So basically, one of the first. So this is where you get to the gold and the red dragon kind of fighting, right? And so this is a pretty heavy, fight here. Rhaenys actually ends up going to kind of, everyone's trying to recruit different lords and what have you. So Sir Otto Hightower believed that Daemon was Rhaenyra's greatest weakness, and reached out to an old foe of Daemon's, the kingdom of the Three Daughters across the Narrow Sea, hoping to use them against Corlys Velaryon. Aegon II was running out of patience, however, and removed Otto's hand. So we talked about that. Let's move on down here. Sir Criston Cole was named in his stead, decided quick action was necessary. Aegon attacked by sacking Duskendale. So here we go. And having Lord Darkland beheaded for supporting Rhaenyra. Criston then turned his attention to Rook's Rest, for House Staunton had pledged their support to Rhaenyra as well. Lord Staunton defied his attackers and dispatched a raven to Dragonstone. Enter Princess Rhaenys, who arrived on her dragon, Meleys. So, now, I kind of think what happens here is that the attack on Duskendale and on Rook's Rest, I think they were hoping that one of the dragon riders would come to Duskendale. And the reason I say that is because when they come to Rook's Rest, there's an ambush. Sunfire and Vhagar are both there waiting for a dragon rider. Maybe they expect them to send 2 dragons, and Dragonstone only sends 1. They send, Rhaenys arrived on her dragon Meleys, but Criston's men attacked the dragon with scorpion bolts, longbows, crossbows, in the battle at Rook's Rest in 129 AC. So it's going well until Sunfire and Vhagar come out of nowhere,
Show up, yeah.
So I kind of think they would have continued to attack along that region just to draw out a couple of the dragon riders so that they could fight them. That was just because they had younger dragon riders. They're hoping maybe they send one of the, Jace or not necessarily Joffrey, but, maybe some of the younger dragon riders. And they're trying to draw out, Daemon. They want him out of Harrenhal. And that's going to come up here in a second because they'll eventually make an offensive towards Harrenhal. So...
and the battle at Rook's Rest, right? The big thing there is that we'd lose, Rhaenys Targaryen, right? Like we talked about her, the queen who never was, her and her dragon Meleys. There's actually a really cool picture in Fire and Blood about it.
Yeah.
Where you see that dragon and
really
and then like
sad.
her body. Yeah.
Yeah. So man, it's something. So Aemon was there on Vhagar, right? And then his brother Aegon was there on Sunfire. So just, also. So let me just read a little bit of this. So when Sunfire and Vhagar also appeared, the dragons fought 1,000 feet above the ground. Meleys' jaw closed around Sunfire's neck, and Vhagar fell upon him. And they actually say that Meleys probably could have just taken Sunfire, or even Vhagar, one-on-one. But it's the fact that both of them showed up at the same time.
Right.
So from the ashes, only Vhagar rose again. Sunfire... had one wing torn half off his body, whilst his rider, King Aegon II, suffered several broken bones and severe burns. Rhaenys was found completely burned next to Meleys. After the battle, Prince Aemon and Criston took Rook's Rest and put the garrison to death. The head of Meleys was brought back to King's Landing, inspiring fear among the small folk, causing thousands to flee the capital until the gates were barred by Queen Alicent. So, yeah, and so as you said, Sir Matt, that Rhaenys is dead, but King Aegon is actually, he's out. He's kind of knocked. He's not dead, but he it says half of his arm was burned.
Right. Well, and if you look at really what happened though, according to the wiki here, it's like casualties on the Greens lost 800 people. Aegon II is injured and Sunfire is injured. The casualties on the Blacks is just 100 Blacks, Lord Staunton, Rhaenys, and they lose a dragon as well. But it's like you lost 800 people to do this.
Yeah, true. Yeah, 800 knights and squires and common men lost their lives that day as well. Another 100 perished not long after. As we said there, Prince Aemon and Sir Criston Cole took Rook's Rest and put the garrison to death. Yeah, so you're right. That's a lot of folks to lose, for this.
Mm-hmm. You took a dragon and a big figure, but you lose a lot of people.
Right. So here's what happened to Aegon II. So whilst his rider, so Sunfire, his splendid golden breast was ripped. One wing was half torn from his body, whilst his royal rider had suffered broken ribs, a broken hip, and burns that covered half his body. His left arm was worst. So he's a mess. Some of the metal from his armor was actually it had melted into his flesh. So he got a full blast of some dragon fire there. And actually, I think what's cool about this story is that, like, if you are Rhaenys, and you're gonna pick one of those two dragons to take on, and really, if you can only take out one dragon rider, take out the king. So I thought that was kind of cool. She goes after King Aegon II and really does him the most damage. And it's Aemon now. Prince Aemon is going to have to become regent or protector of the realm. He kind of assumes that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. Let's move on. Again, we're trying to get better at not reading everything. Let's see. So next is the dragon seeds, right? So we've lost a dragon rider. We've lost a dragon. We need additional folks to kind of, we've got a bunch of dragons on Dragonstone, and we kind of want to, we need riders. We need their weapons. They're things we can use in this, in the wars to come here. So, okay, top of page 441 here. Not all those who came forward in answer to the prince's call were seeds. So the prince called for dragon seeds, or those who had dragon's blood, to come forward. Nor even the sons or grandsons of seeds. A score of the queen's own household knights offered themselves as dragon riders. Amongst them was the lord commander of her queen's guard, Sir Stephen Darklyn, along with squires, sailors, men-at-arms, mummers, and 2 maids. The sowing of the seeds, Monken names the triumphs and tragedies that ensued. Others preferred the red sowing. So, a lot of these folks who come forward and try to approach a dragon, they don't make it.
They don't make it.
They don't make it. I mean, even Aemon, when he was running to get Vhagar, like, basically it's dumb luck, runs so fast, should have been more scared than he was, but yeah, I don't know. So it's tough to kind of claim a dragon, especially if they've not been around them or what have you. So
yeah, and this is something we talked about. Yeah, I think you and I spent a bit on this when we talked about it back in Fire, or in World of Ice and Fire, was the idea, of like these. There's probably there probably are a bunch of Targaryen bastards, and just Valyria. Anybody who has the blood of Valyria may be able to ride one of these dragons, because it's not just Targaryens. There's the House Valerian as well. So.
Right, and one of the most infamous dragon riders here is our good friend Mushroom. He says, the most unlikely of these would be dragon riders, and this is a joke, was Mushroom himself, whose testimony speaks at length of his attempt to mount Old Silverwing, judged to be the most docile of the masterless dragons. One of the dwarf's most assuming tales. It ends with Mushroom running across the ward of Dragonstone, with the seat on his on fire and nigh drowning when he leapt into a well to quench the flames. So basically, his pants are on fire. He's running, drenches the flames. So he tried.
I believe it.
I think he tried. I think he might have rolled out there and gave it a run. So, anyways, it goes on to say, though, dragons are not horses. They do not easily accept men upon their backs, and when angered or threatened, they attack. Monken's true tellings tell us that 16 men lost their lives during the sowing. 3 times that number were burned or maimed. Stephen Darklyn was burnt to death whilst attempting to mount the dragon Sea Smoke. Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy that's a Queensguard member is killed just by trying to mount a dragon. That's a big loss.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. Yet Sea Smoke, Vermithor, and Silverwing were accustomed to men and tolerant of their presence. So they were a little bit more willing to accept riders. Let me back up here just a minute, because there's a dragon I'm sure folks are going to want us to mention. Let's see. Lord Gorman Massey suffered the same fate when he approached Vermithor. So again, folks are trying to claim that dragon. A man called Silver Danes, whose hair and eyes lent credence to his claim to be led credence to his claim to be descended from a bastard son of Maegor the Cruel, had an arm torn off by Sheep Stealer. As his sons struggled to staunch the wound, the cannibal descended on them, drove off Sheep Stealer, and devoured father and son alike. So Cannibal, this dragon that shows up, is I don't know if you want to pull up the wiki there, Sir Matt, on cannibal, because that's something I know a lot of folks are interested in and have talked about. Where did this dragon come from? It's just kind of a crazy wild thing. So, all right. So, yet Sea Smoke and Vermithor Silverwing were accustomed to men and tolerant of their presence. Having once been ridden, they were more accustomed to accepting new riders. Vermithor, the old king's own dragon, bent his neck to a blacksmith's bastard, a towering man called Hugh the Hammer, or Hard Hugh, whilst a pale-haired man-at-arms named Ulf the White for his hair, or Ulf the Sot for his drinking, mounted Silverwing, beloved of good Queen Alysanne, and Sea Smoke, who had once borne Laenor Valerion, took onto his back a boy of 10 and 5, known as Adam of Hall, whose origins remain a matter of dispute amongst historians to this day. And we're going to skip over the Adam of Hall story just a little bit. It's basically Corlys Valerian. Was he unfaithful to his wife? Did his son have a bastard? All that kind of stuff. There's a whole story with him that's pretty neat. But yeah, so did you find anything on? Yeah.
Yeah, I have Cannibal pulled up here. Yeah. So yeah, it's just he's known to he's we don't know his exact age. The wild dragon sheep stealer is said to have hatched when the old king was young. That is earlies. The cannibal is stated to have been the eldest and largest of the 3 wild dragons, and was therefore even older than sheep stealer. He was known to attack smaller dragons. He layered at the back of Dragon Mount prior to the Dance of Dragons. A dozen would-be dragon riders had made attempts to ride him, and his lair was littered with their bones.
Yeah. So, yeah, he actually comes up, I think, again later too. So we'll talk more about him.
Which I'm interested. About the bones we see in the season 8 trailer where Dany and Jon are walking up to the dragons.
Yeah.
I wonder if those are the bones of like animals or people or both.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. And there was one more, by the way, just as we're talking about dragon seeds here. Sheep Stealer, who earlier someone tried to mount, was mounted by a girl named Nettles. And we talked about her again during the World of Ice and Fire. Corlys asked Rhaenyra to remove the taint of bastardry from Adam and his brother Alan, making them true Valerians, and he named Adam heir to Driftmark. So why he did that, there's a whole backstory that we have talked about in A World of Ice and Fire, but we're going to save for now. So I believe we want to end with just the Battle of the Gullet here, just kind of a quick little rundown of it, so we can kind of cover some of the other stuff a tad bit later here. Let me pull it up. So the Battle of the Gullet was also called Battle in the Gullet, was a battle that took place in the Gullet in 130 AC during the Dance of Dragons. It remains amongst the bloodiest sea battles in all of history. So you've got the Blacks versus the Greens. You've also got the Triarchy on the Greens with supporting the Greens as well. Let's see some of the commanders there. Goodness, you've got Jace is there with Corlys Valerian. They're kind of your Blacks, and then you've got Admiral Sharkoa Lohar, I think is how you say his name. Yeah. So, anyways, so the battle began on the 5th day of the new year, 130 AC. I have no idea how to say his name. Lohar divided the Triarchy ships into 2 squadrons, entering the Gullet to the north and to the south of Dragonstone. They attacked at sunrise, surprising House Valerian's fleet. So one of the issues, that Aemon and that Aegon II had was that Corlys Valerian has a lot of ships, and he's got a massive. I mean, he's from Driftmark. He used to be the master of ships, and so their fleet is pretty awesome. They needed a way to kind of strike at their fleet and even Driftmark, but how do you do that if you don't really have like a red wine fleet build up right now? So yeah, they end up actually convincing some of the Triarchy to help them, and so they actually end up sacking Driftmark. So flying on Vermax to meet the fleet of the Triarchy, Prince Jace Valerian swept down upon a line of Lyseni galleys. The sailors had experienced fighting Prince Daemon Targaryen and his dragons. So remember, Daemon, the king of the Stepstones, the who is married to Rhaenyra right now. He actually at one point he had fought the Triarchy, and so they've seen dragons before. They've faced Caraxes during the War for the Stepstones. So their captains directed their spears and arrows against Jace. One ship caught on fire, and then another. However, when Jace was joined by Ulf the White on Silverwing, Nettles on Sheepstealer, Adam Valerion on Sea Smoke, and Hugh the Hammer on Vermithor, the line of warships from the Free Cities shattered as one galley after another turned away. So that's pretty. You've got, basically having the dragon seeds show up. Pretty big deal. You know what I mean? Like, that's too many. That's what's way too many dragons to kind of take on. Mm-hmm. So, now the outcome of this, Vermax flew too low, however, and crashed down into the sea, possibly wounded from a crossbow bolt to the eye or pulled down by a grapnel. Survivors said that he struggled in the rigging of a burning galley and sank with it. Jace leapt free, but was then killed by a Myrish crossbowman. So, Jace is gone. Okay, so that's another kind of big casualty for the Blacks there. Last little bit here on that. North and south of Dragonstone, the battle continued into nighttime. The Southern Squadron bypassed Dragonstone, believing that it was too strong to assault, and instead attacked Driftmark. So instead of heading directly towards Dragonstone, they actually shift over and take on Driftmark, setting afire the harbor of Spicetown with fire ships. The town was sacked and its inhabitants butchered and left to die. High Tide and the treasures of Lord Corlys Velaryon were burned by Myrish and Tyrashi soldiers, with the Sea Snake's servants cut down as they fled. So, this is, kind of a big strike, to hit Driftmark. Mm-hmm. And also, Corlys Velaryon had a lot of wealth on that island. I mean, House Velaryon was one of the more wealthy houses in Westeros at the time. So that's, all of his, treasure there is sacked or burnt or destroyed or, what have you. So, yeah. Some of the aftermath last a little bit here. Thousands died from the battle, and Spicetown was never rebuilt. The Velaryon fleet almost a third of its strength was lost. Prince Jace Velaryon and his dragon Vermax were killed, and Prince Viserys Targaryen was taken captive, but presumed dead by both sides. Prince Aegon the Younger never forgave himself for abandoning his little brother. According to Mushroom, Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White celebrated their participation. Nettles and Adam Valerion were heavily affected, with the latter seeking out Sea Snake, though what they spoke to each other remains unknown. Many people on Dragonstone came to resent Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen for kin they had lost during the battle. So since they lost so many folks, people are starting to turn against her as well. So, yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll kind of leave it there, and there's even more to this chapter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you know, there's
it's long. It's long, and that's how Fire and Blood is, and that's what we've kind of been saying for the past couple of weeks. Is sometimes it gets a little thick, a little, kind of dry.
But I think it's full of really cool battles, and there it is a pretty. I love how there's a connection back to the Triarchy, right, and how the fact that they're bringing them back into this conflict, and you can see why it was easy for the Greens to get their support when Daemon had been down there earlier warring against them over the Stepstones. In a time of war, it's sort of like for the Greens to get more alliances, you can have the Stepstones. You know what I mean? Just take them. Just strike at Dragonstone for us. Strike at this fleet. Help us out, and they're yours. So that's a good move by the Greens. So as you get into it, and maybe if we have some more time, we can do some Dance of Dragons, some deeper dives, later after the show is over, back on Patreon or what have you, because I would love to actually really get into the back and forth of all these different battles and the strategy that took place. There's a great reference out there. It's a blog of Ice and Fire, I think, isn't that what it's called? Or it's an atlas of Ice and Fire, I think. We've referenced him before.
I think it's an atlas.
Yeah. It's wonderful. There's great maps and there's lots of arrows and stuff showing the direction of battle and the way things took place. And it's very helpful if you're more interested in some of the histories, because you can really see the strategy, and it's just neat to see how Gur thought through that and really takes you through what seems to be a very realistic battle. It's just it's fascinating to me. So all right, I could talk about it forever, but I'm gonna stop.
That's okay. Hey, all right. Well, let's move on over to the reread then, Sir Ezra. This week we are going to be talking Daenerys 6. Last time we were talking Jon 7, where the bodies of 2 men that had accompanied Benjen Stark were found. Sir Jeremy Riker blames wildlings, but Sam points out odd characteristics about the bodies. Back at Castle Black, Jon learns that King Robert is dead and that his father is charged with treason. At dinner that night, Sir Alistair... Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I think I forgot to update that. That's not what we did last time, was it? Was it, John? Wasn't it a Bran chapter?
It was Bran. Yeah.
It was Bran. Yeah. Oops. Forgot to update that in the doc. That's okay. We were talking about Bran.
Yeah.
But last time we were talking about Daenerys. Daenerys had eaten a stallion's heart as part of a Dothraki pregnancy ritual. Afterwards, she had bathed in the womb of the world and goes to the reception feast. Viserys soon arrives, drunk and screaming. He draws his blade and demands what he is owed. Khal Drogo gives him a crown of molten gold. This week, Daenerys is unable to convince Khal Drogo to assault the Seven Kingdoms to regain her throne. While Drogo is hunting, Daenerys goes to the market where a wine merchant offers her a cask of wine. When Ser Jorah insists that the merchant drink first, the merchant refuses and attempts to flee. When Drogo learns the attempt to poison Daenerys, he makes the decision to attack the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah. So I mean, good news for Dany. She avoids being the assassination attempt. Now she couldn't convince her husband, to turn. He's actually going further east in this chapter, and just seems to not be changing course and has his own plans. And then finally it's like, ironically, this attempt here has caused him to say, nope, all right, fine, cool. You're gonna attack my wife. Here I come. So kind of a pride thing, but it's awesome. It's a turning point.
Yeah, it is what it. Yeah, absolutely is what it is. So, yes, let me pull up that here really quick.
And I also think too, it's like one of those things that the setup here as well for Jorah. It's like it's just funny when we look back at this to see this is the decision to. He is communicating with King's Landing with Varys, but once he finds out about I feel like he's in the middle of making his decision to stop communicating and to
absolutely
just to join her. And before it was to spy on her brother, and now it's like her, and he knows that they're trying to assassinate her and her baby, and that really pushes him, I think, over the edge to say, all right, enough's enough. I'm picking my side, which is good for him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, beginning the chapter here, when he had taken his pleasure, Khal Drogo rose from their sleeping mats to tower above her. His skin shone dark as bronze in the ruddy light from the brazier, the faint lines of old scars visible on his broad chest. Ink black hair, loose and unbound, cascaded over his shoulders and down his back, well past his waist. His manhood glistened wetly.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to leave a long pause there. The cow's mouth twisted in a frown beneath the droop of his long mustachio. The stallion who mounts the world has no need of iron chairs. Or that's how Roy Dotrice pronounces it.
Yeah, there you go. That's how he says it. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, and that's the line, isn't it? I mean, doesn't need an iron chair, So, golly. So she must have just been trying to convince him, and he says, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's essentially what this, the main part of this chapter is. She's trying to convince him. He kind of tells her, he's like, that the earth ends at the Black Salt Sea, because it's the idea that, it's poisonous water. So to them, it's like the earth doesn't exist past that. And she talks about how there's ships, and Khal Drogo basically just dismisses her, right? I mean, that's kind of what happens is he kind of dismisses her. He says, I'm going hunting. Then she is going to end up end up going to the market. And that's where kind of the second bigger part of this chapter takes place, which is the assassination attempt.
Right, yeah.
Which is not the first assassination attempt that will happen to Daenerys.
No, for sure, yeah. It is kind of funny though, like his belief is just that like that's something they've never done, and so but her the idea from her perspective is that like, look, I'm from Westeros and I'm bearing your child who is the stallion who will mount the world, and if that's the case, the world extends beyond what you the sea, and he says no, it doesn't. Like the world ends there, and it's like what yeah. But I also think he's saying that because there's a fear there. This is the unknown. He could lose it all. Whereas like if he knows right now, he hasn't lost. I mean he's
in a good place.
He's a boss right now. So yeah, okay. So yeah, let's see. Yes, my son and stars. Danny said Drogo would take his blood riders, and they were going to search for. They're actually going out for a great white lion on the plains. So they go hunting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And while they do that, she's kind of just doing her thing. She's with her handmaidens and what have you. And they talk a little bit more just about their preparation for the hunt and various things. So the night, Ser Jorah Mormont came at once, though. He wore his horse-haired leggings, painted vest like a rider. Coarse black hair covered his thick chest and muscular arms. My princess, how may I serve you? She said, you must talk to my lord husband. Drogo says the stallion who mounts the world will have all the lands of the earth to rule and no need to cross the poison water. He talks of leading his Khalasar east after Rhaego is born to plunder the lands around the Jade Sea. So there you go. She's trying to bring in, Jorah to help persuade him. And I don't know. It always just makes me a little bit nervous. I'm just like, man, yeah. Like both of these guys are just such outsiders. It just like if Khal Drogo wants to, end it. I don't know what their customs are and things, but it's just like I don't know. It's
right.
Like her brother just got crowned. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't.
Yeah, but I think part of it is the fact that he loves Daenerys because she's different.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
we see that right after the end of this chapter, we'd have the assassination attempt. He's like, well, fine, I'll do it. I will go over there because now it's become more realistic because somebody from beyond that sea has now tried to kill her.
Yeah, right,
so,
exactly.
To them, it's like, okay, all right,
well,
and kill him.
And that's what Jorah kind of tells her, right? The knight answers and says the Dothraki do things in their own time for their own reasons. He just kind of warns her not to make her brother's mistake, So he says, "We will go home, I promise you." So,
yeah, which I mean, it still comes back to me to this idea of them not wanting to cross the sea is what was Illyrio and Varys' plan? Mm-hmm. Did they actually ever think that this Dothraki army would ever cross the sea, or was it just kind of like, all right, we have no use for these people anymore?
Yeah, I think it's just it's a good alliance, for them on Essos to make or whatever. But yeah, I think he's working the young Griff angle, and we just didn't know it.
I think you're right.
And that's what's kind of crazy. They're safer. I mean, over here and with the Dothraki than they will. They just don't have a good plan going back over there. And actually, they kind of get in the way. I believe that, Illyrio was working on this plan with young Griff and John Connington for a long time. And then the Beggar King shows up, and so it's like, okay, we got to keep these.
Yeah, may just mess it up.
Yeah, I got to keep these two things separate. So, but hey, here's another tie-in, though, just a cool connection real quick. She says home as a question mark. The word makes her feel sad. Ser Jorah had his bare island, but what was her home? What was home to her? A few tales. Names recited as solemnly as the words of a prayer, the fading memory of a red door. I mean, there's that red door with the ... I mean, it's just like it's left right there. And so maybe one time we'll do a musing or we'll actually have a discussion on it. There's lots of evidence that it was pushed hard in the first 3 books and even more so towards the end. It just kind of is a reoccurring thing here. So I know a lot of people.
The red door with the lemon trees, the idea that lemons don't grow in Bravos, but they do grow in Dorne, which means that maybe Daenerys was raised in Dorne instead of Braavos like we're led to believe. In
Yeah.
Essos, just generally.
Yeah. Okay. So Matt just went ahead and summarized the whole thing. There you go. No,
Yeah, well, that's the theory. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, there's a lot of evidence, and if the show doesn't really ever touch on it, to my knowledge.
No.
But it could have major implications. Yeah, because I don't know, it's to me it ties into a little bit more of that idea that maybe Daenerys is actually one of Rhaegar's children.
Yeah, I see why some people take that route, and I also think too, if you look in the books too, just with Ariana, and what's happening with Dorne and them trying to make alliances with Quentin and so on, it definitely Dorne is going to be a player as Daenerys comes back to Westeros, big time. And so I think that's where we'll see more of that connection and those memories that she has. I think maybe we'll actually see her, confronted with the door and the place in which she grew up in air quote home, So, yeah, okay, cool. So we'll come back to that at some point. And if anybody has thoughts or interest in us talking more about that, let us know. We definitely will. All right. So, yeah, let's move on here to the market, right? So she eventually heads into the marketplace, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, the day was warm and cloudless, the sky a deep blue. When the winds blew, she could smell the rich scents of grass and earth. As her litter passed beneath the stolen monuments, she went from sunlight to shadow and back again. Dany swayed along, studying the faces of dead heroes and forgotten kings. She wondered if the gods of burned cities could still answer prayers. So that's kind of ironic. So, yeah, if it were not the blood of the dragon, she thought wistfully, this could be my home. She was Khaleesi. She had a strong man and a swift horse, handmaidens to serve her, warriors to keep her safe, an honored place in the Dash Khaleen, awaiting her when she grew old, and in her womb grew a son who would one day bestride the world. That should be enough for any woman, but not for the dragon. So she's already kind of like right. this dragon that's awakening in her, this as Quaithe kind of reminds her, don't forget who you are, and that you have the blood of the dragon, and you are, she is the dragon reborn, essentially. There you go, Wheel of Time connection. It's don't forget that, and she has this longing, I guess, growing need to be more than what she is, and she's already Khaleesi, so.
Yeah, I mean, her life is already like pretty set. That's kind of what she's thinking. Little does she know how much none of that is actually that great, right? Like when she eventually meets the Dash Khaleen and those events happen.
Yeah, they do. I mean, so it's it's like, but I think that's why there is this pull. It's like she can't stay this Khaleesi forever. She and Drogo and Rhaego need to be more than what they are. She just has that desire as because you're right. Yeah, as soon as you see what could one day be her, sitting in the sacred city, never allowed to leave it, but just there. That would be her life. That's not a Targaryen. That's not the Targaryen way of life. It's like she's gonna move on. She needs to rule, conquer, and so on. And she just has that. It's funny that she didn't have that feeling until. I mean, it starts to happen around when Viserys, right before he dies, but then more and more it's just growing on her, and that dragon is awakening in her, and so it's really neat to see how it kind of develops.
It's also interesting this paragraph right here, because if you just read it and you're kind of looking at it, it's so similar to a lot of other characters' kind of thoughts in this book. Right, you have like Sansa who thinks, "Oh, I'll just go marry Joffrey and life will be lovely," and Jon who's like, "I want to go join the Night's Watch so I can become a ranger and be like my Uncle Benjen." It's just this kind of like I don't want to say like innocence to it, this is going to be great, and you don't really see a lot of these type of thoughts past this book, right? It all becomes a little bit more about survival and understanding your destiny as opposed to like imagining, what like a good life could be.
Yeah, and I think Dany's character just has all of that happen a little quicker. I think you're right. Like it takes Sansa a while, a lot of hardships to really, develop and come, to grow into the character that we know her to be later in the series and now even in the show. And it's like Dany has a lot, even with the timeline with her and just her pregnancy and the birth. She spends a lot of time with the Khalasar, growing and developing. And it's like, but you can see that line right here where it says that should be enough for any woman, but not for the dragon. And so, as you say, she's thinking, this is that'd be great to marry so and so and to be in this position. I'm the Khaleesi. I could live here. I could make a home here. But just like Jon and all these other characters find out, there's more. There's
right, and even Jon has a thought like that much later, right, where Stannis offers to name him like Jon Stark.
Yeah,
Lord of Winterfell. Jon has like almost the exact same type of, just a paragraph too, where he's just thinking, but I can't,
right?
Because I'm the Lord Commander.
Yeah.
And a bastard and all of that stuff. Yeah,
sure. Yep. So, all right, let's get into the marketplace here. The Western Market was a great square of beaten earth surrounded by, warrens of mud-baked brick, animal pens, whitewashed drinking halls, and so on. So she heads into the market here, and she this is something she really enjoys, just walking around the various markets. It reminds her of Pentos and the other free cities. And you've got people in there selling goods. You've got some entertainment and so on. So, and to make this, let's see, she liked the strangeness of the Eastern market too, with all of its queer sights and sounds and smells. She often spent her mornings there, nibbling on tree eggs, locust pies, green noodles, listening to the high, undulating voices of the spell singers, gaping at manticorns in silver cages, and so on. So again, all sorts of cool things for her to see there. But they eventually are kind of called out here by a I can't find it right now, but the winemaker basically offers her a drink. And what's interesting is the first drink that he offers her it's not poisonous. It's not it was a sweet wine, and so she was interested in that. But once he finds out that she is Daenerys Targaryen, and that's announced, he kind of says, well, this is the wine that he's offering her is no good.
It's Dorea steps up. He says, she's like, you have the honor to address Daenerys of the House Targaryen, Daenerys Stormborn, Khaleesi, and then the wine merchant drops to his knees. Princess, he says, bowing his head, rise. I would still like to taste that summer wine you spoke of. And the man says, that Dornish swill is not worthy of a princess. I have a dry red from the arbor, crisp and delectable. Please let me give you a cask. So there is arbor, this idea of arbor and arbor gold, right? So not that this is arbor gold. Arbor gold isn't well, maybe it is. I can't remember. But anyway, so there's a big Reddit kind of theory and stuff. People have broken down anytime that like arbor gold is mentioned in chapters, it always leads to sort of like deception.
Yeah.
And there's
right.
So
yeah.
It's interesting that this is one of those chapters.
Well, yeah, it's like how Gur uses, like you said, food to indicate something. Yeah, that's something people have mentioned. Yeah. But so I guess the reason I brought up the whole point about, that he offers her something, and then, when she says, I'd still like to taste that, he says that Dornish, swill, that's not worthy of a princess. It's like all of a sudden, I feel like there were several people in the marketplace who could have assassinated her, right? This guy, they were all told to be on the lookout for the princess or for Daenerys Targaryen or the Khaleesi. And when they meet her, all of a sudden, then he offers her the poison wine. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that wasn't the only, because they don't know who she's going to encounter, but the word is out. Like there's a reward out for her death. And so this guy, he goes for it. He makes the choice. He's got the poison wine ready to go, and he offers it to her and says that she needs a whole, barrel full, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it says, the honor is mine. The merchant rummaged around in the back of his stall, produced a small oaken cask. Burned into the wood was a cluster of grapes. The red wine sigil, he said, pointing, for the arbor, there is no finer drink. Khal Drogo and I will share it together. And so they begin to take it. But then as soon as they take the wine, here comes Jorah back. Remember, I skipped over the part where basically he leaves to go check out some letters, and she thought perhaps he was going to a pleasure house and, what have you. But yeah, he comes back in, and he actually has the winemaker, he wants to open it, and he wants a drink of it. He says, "I have a thirst. Open it, wine cellar." And the merchant frowned. "The wine is for the Khaleesi, not for the likes of you, sir." And clearly Dany's picking up on what Jorah's putting down here, and he commands him to pour, and kind of basically says that if it's so good, if there's nothing wrong with it, then he wants the wine cellar to drink it, right? And he goes to slowly grab a couple cups, pretending like he's gonna pour it, no big deal, and then just bolts. He's just out of there.
Yeah.
So what do you do? You're not going to drink your own poisonous wine, are you? You're going to try to make it on the run, right?
Well, what's his name does when he tries to poison Melisandre.
Well, yeah, that's a little, yeah. Well,
but this is different because you're being paid, and so it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also you're in a marketplace, and you're thinking maybe I can get away here from these guys, but I don't know. Yeah, what would he have done if she takes the barrel? I mean, he closes up. He would have to close up shop and get the heck out of there, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, you'd have to.
Days over at the market. You're done. So, anyways, yeah. So as he rushes off there, eventually, what's his name? One of the Blood Riders there, right? Who's with them, takes out their whip. I mean, they reach for their swords and for their weapons, but they don't have any, right? And actually gets his whip out there and is able to kind of catch him around the ankle and pull him down. So, yeah, and I mean, basically, what else happens there, Sir? He kind of confesses a little bit, right? That he was that it is poisonous, and he was going to assassinate her, and then she learns from Jorah that how did you know about this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's because of the letters that he receives, right? Because he goes and checks with he goes and checks his letters and kind of comes back, and actually he says that he doesn't know initially, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of an assumption that he makes.
Yeah. And then Jordan. I mean, Jorah would have to know too, right, about the within being. The letters from Varys, as you said too, but also just in general,
he had a suspicion.
As you were saying, he's started to change a little bit, like where he is becoming more kind of protective, I'd say.
Right. Yeah, it's like, so what I think happens is, right, so he hears that there's a reward out there, that there's maybe he finally gets his letter that says, like, hey, if you find a chance, assassinate her, and then lordship's yours, and all this kind of stuff or whatever. And once he reads that, then it's like, okay, yeah, he's been spying, he's been giving information, but now I've been asked to kill someone, and I was thinking about, switching sides here. And so as he rushes back, the first thing that he sees her doing is getting this cask of wine. And, because she says, she's kind of trembling, and she says, how did you know? And he says, I did not know, Khaleesi, not until the man refused to drink. But once I read Magister Illyrio's letter, I feared. His dark eyes swept over the faces of the strangers in the market. Come, best not to talk of it here. The letters have already gone out. My thing is that I don't know why. I've never quite understood, Varys and Illyrio. Just that there's such a mystery to those two characters as to why Illyrio is seemingly helping Viserys and Dany. They just have a plan A and a plan B. You know what I mean? Is I guess the way I look at it. And so, and their plan B, I think, is actually Dany and Viserys. Yeah. So their plan A is young Griff, I think.
I'm with you. I think so as well.
Right. So they're willing to pass along this information. I just wondered if at what point was Jorah having, some different thoughts or maybe wanting to kind of switch sides here. It's one thing just to report that, like, hey, here's where she's at. She's with child and so on. That seems kind of innocent, but now they're wanting to assassinate her. Well, actually, they say that they're really sent after to kill her brother. So it's not actually necessarily, like her brother was one So let's read this. So yes, the knight drew out a folded parchment, a letter to Viserys from Master. Well, there it is. A letter to Viserys from Master Illyrio. Robert Baratheon offers lands and lordships for your death or your brother's. My brother. Her sob was half a laugh. He does not know yet, does he? The usurper owes Drogo a lordship. So there you go. I answered my own question right with the next paragraph. Magister Illyrio is actually sending this letter on to Viserys, and it's intercepted. It's so Jorah is the one who kind of a letter to Viserys from Magister Illyrio. So that would be a warning. That shows you that Illyrio is warning him. Varys is kind of doing two things, right? Then so he's communicating across the narrow sea. Like the orders go out that Daenerys is to be killed, right? Doesn't he say at one point to send word to one of their informants, Ser Jorah, who's directly corresponding with Ser Jorah Mormont? Is it Illyrio? Is it Varys? Who is he sending his letters to? And you know what I'm saying? Like, who's communicating directly to him? Because if he's just intercepted that letter from Illyrio and it was meant to go to Viserys, and that's how he indirectly finds out, that they're onto you. They're trying to kill you, and so there's a warning sent. Because I don't think Illyrio and Varys would idly just throw away their plan B, and say, yeah, we're going to let you guys be assassinated. And Varys is the one who hears it first over in King's Landing, sends the warning to Illyrio. Illyrio sends it to Varys. It's intercepted by Jorah. But, yeah. I don't know. I just kind of wonder who he's talking to. So that's really my main question, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's... You want to finish this up here?
Let's move on to the next little segment here. So, essentially, Daenerys goes back kind of to her tent there, and she thinks that the usurper, because her child starts to kind of kick, right? So she thinks the usurper has kind of woken the dragon. So she starts to play with her dragon eggs a little bit. This is where she tells Ser Jorah to light the brazier despite the heat and asks him to leave. Then this is where she kind of pushes the eggs under the coals, thinking like, oh, what might happen? And they kind of glisten a little bit, but that's just about it. They don't really they don't open or anything like she expects. But it is kind of interesting to see what they do with when Daenerys is doing it, because it's almost as if there is some sort of like power there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so, there's a little bit of foreshadowing for us, right? And we'll see those, enter the fire a little bit later as well. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and then we get to the part where Khal Drogo returns, and he kind of tells her that he's killed. What's he killed? He's killed a Hrothgar.
Did he kill that lion? Like that white lion or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna make a cloak out of its skin. She kind of tells him what happens, and this is where he gets very quiet. And Ser Jorah tells her, this probably isn't going to be the last attempt. Drogo gives Ser Jorah and Drogo a choice of his horses, right? Because he's proud of him for that. Yeah, they're very thankful that she saved him. He also proclaims a gift for his unborn son, the 7 kingdoms of Westeros.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This is where he's like, all right, we're going to do this. He's going to ride the wooden horses, a.k.a. boats, to Westeros and kill the men in the iron suits, tear down their stone houses. He vows to rape all their women and take their children as slaves and bring their broken gods back to Vaes Dothrak to bow beneath the mountain, the mother of the mountains. And then 2 days later, the Khalasar leaves, and then they have the wine cellar that Daenerys that tried to kill Daenerys is chained and following behind them, and says no harm will come to him as long as he keeps up.
So, anyways, yeah. So you're right. He now has his eyes set over there on on Robert Baratheon and those who are trying to kill his his Khaleesi.
All right, well, let's move on over to Sir Ezra. I think that's a good wrap up for the chapter this week. Let's move on over to Send Us a Raven.
Yeah, to send us a raven here. So we've been getting several, like we said, we have a lot of ravens coming up for Raven's Nest. So if we do not read your raven during Raven's Nest, it's just because we have so many, and we will definitely get to all of them eventually. We said we might do a follow-up Friday. We might even do just a topic by topic. Sir Matt and I might bring them up in the main show or what have you. But I thought this one today was a pretty good one. This is from Oh, gosh, we've got Royal Soward, third of his name, King of the North, protector of the Triangular Realm.
King of the North.
King of the North, he says. So don't anybody question it. We don't know. But that's the Northern Triangular Realm, I guess. All right.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's a different place, Sir Matt. All right. No, this has been awesome, honestly. Royal's been sending us quite a few emails, quite a few Ravens, excuse me. And, I mean, I think we're up to like almost double-digit Ravens from him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been fantastic. And this one happens to do with, Samwell and Bran. And this is a Season 8 thing. Mm-hmm. So this will be fun. We can kind of shift gears here a little bit. So, dear sirs, I want to say getting the two podcasts back-to-back was a real treat. So we just got this one today, by the way. So we had the back-to-back. We've got Who is Quaithe, and then we kind of had a Crypts of Winterfell that came out. So each of the casts get my mind racing towards Season 8 in a few thoughts. And going back through the seasons of Game of Thrones and HBO Go, in doing so, I just realized how much information is contained in every episode. In fact, my wife just watched the very first episode again, and when it was over, she commented that she misremembered what happened in the first episode, thinking that all of its information was actually the entirety of the first season. So basically kind of saying that one episode can carry a lot of information and can seem like almost a whole season, or can identify a whole season.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. My point is that in Season 8, we cannot rule out any theories strictly based on the fact that there isn't much time left. Mentally, I limit theories regarding Season 8 based things like a lack of precedent in the show or introduction of new in-show characters in order to drive a theory. So basically, what he's saying is that, like, we let's not put ourselves in a box here. I mean, if we're talking, what's the longest episode? I know there's a big battle scene, but I mean, you've got these episodes are longer as well too. So
absolutely,
you can communicate a lot.
A couple episodes in Season 7 are a little over an hour, but not. I think it's like 1 or 2.
Yeah. Okay. Having said all of this, I have had a green dream regarding Season 8. My dream came to me in fragments, just like Bran's prophetic dreams. In this particular dream, I saw a three-eyed raven in a fire-lit room. There were old books from the Citadel piled high at a desk with ample quills, ink, and parchment. Sam was sitting at the desk, busy writing as the ravens recited what he saw in his broken dreams. Gilly was there. She was rifling through the old books, searching for references and clues to make sense of it all. Outside the room, all of Winterfell prepared their battlements whilst they waited to hear the prophecies. I believe that Sam will be vital in helping Bran to really hone his powers. Beginning in Season 8, Sam wanted so badly to go to the Citadel and learn, specifically so that he could be of assistance during this battle. This is how he will be of assistance. He will help Bran to interpret his visions and learn how to fully understand what it is that he is seeing. To my mind, this is huge. Sam will offer full credibility to Bran's visions if he can back them up with facts from the sacred Citadel text. If everyone believes what Bran says, then it makes the story move along. Everyone will accept Jon's parentage. There could be a full explanation of the crypts of Winterfell, its meaning, and a full-scale map for everyone to use in case the need of escape arises. Everyone will know who the Night King is and possibly how he was defeated in the past. They will know why he is coming south of the wall and how to attack the army of the dead. And all of this can be accomplished in just 2 scenes, the study and the findings. If my dream is correct, Bran will be an incredible, important weapon for the good guys and will be treasured and protected at all cost. Yeah. I think it's, we've talked a lot about, like, are you just going to believe Bran? I mean, are you like,
I think you're going to need something. Yeah. You're going to need something to back it up.
Right. Right.
And not only that, but the lack of a Howland Reed type character in the show.
Yeah.
Right. Who could potentially provide that source of, like, oh, I was there, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to need something, because something you and I were talking about off air is So the show has told us that R plus L equals J, right? They've confirmed it, but they still haven't told us why.
Yeah.
They've still yet to tell us why. We know because we're obviously book addicts about the Azor Ahai and all this stuff, but
right.
We just have Melisandre saying, well, Stannis is the prince who was promised who will defeat the Night King, right?
Right.
And then now it's Jon Snow, and it as fans we interpret it as Jon Snow because Rhaegar and Lyanna and all that stuff, but a lot of Rhaegar's history, if you were somebody who had just watched the show, you wouldn't really know a lot about the fact that he was like bookish and suddenly decided one day he just wanted to fight, and a lot of there's not as many old Nan's tales and all this stuff. So
yeah,
the show still hasn't told us why, and we don't know from the books. I mean, we have bigger theories, but we still don't know entirely why that happened. We're going to need somebody to explain it, and it's probably going to be Bran, obviously, with a vision. But
yeah, well, let me make a quick plug then, just for one of the Green Dreams that we just did, which was what is in Lyanna's tomb. And I think
you and I did that yesterday.
Yeah, and I think if you get a chance to go check that out, it's on Patreon. You guys can take a listen there. It's a really cool theory we came across, and then Sir Matt and I kind of had our own thoughts and had our own questions at the end, and have a nice discussion about it. But during the course of that episode, I started to think, along with what Royal is saying here, that if Bran were to say all of a sudden, like if you can tell that Lyanna's tomb hasn't been opened, and he just says, "Here's what's in there," he's seen it in a vision, and then you open it, and then like, oh, Bran was right. Like, this is actually in here. Mm-hmm. It does start to. It's one thing, score for him to make him more credible. You know what I mean? So if he can do a couple things like that, that everyone can kind of see, oh yeah, he actually can see these things, or has seen into the past, and does know what takes place, and can lead our main heroes down this path and show them these things. That would help too, to make it a little bit more credible. But
absolutely, yeah.
We as we were discussing that, we said, who just because we have all these markers in Lyanna's tomb, and by the way, that's the theory, is that there are a bunch of, we won't say which ones, Sir Matt and I won't say, but we discussed a lot of different markers that could be in her tomb, and that doesn't mean that Jon necessarily is her child. The show has shown us, I guess we're talking book there a little bit, because the show is clearly has made it clear and has done a lot to convince
I mean, the
us.
book's made it clear too. Let's not act like it hasn't.
No, I'm not saying that. It's just like, if when I read people's theories about, like, oh, just because you find something that's attached to Rhaegar in her tomb, that means that Jon is Rhaegar's. Well, you still have to attach Jon to Lyanna's tomb.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So, anyways, that's a cool little conversation that we had there. When you guys get a chance to check that out. But I hope Sam is a major player in season 8. I hope he's someone who really does play a big role. And I think sometimes the drop of information, like when you have people who do information drops, and it's not like someone dying or being killed, but it's a bombshell of information. I think that's even cooler, as an audience, as just someone watching a show or reading a book. It's like, boom, there's a little bit of knowledge you didn't have, and it's sort of a big twist, and it's just really cool. Like the whole bit about Rhaegar's annulment to Elia Martell. I mean, I was like, whoa, okay, cool. That's actually written down somewhere, in the Citadel. So, all right. So yeah, thanks again for the Raven, and then, as we said, March 31st we'll be having Raven's Nest there, and my goal is tonight, when we're done recording, to finish up the doc and get that up there for everybody on Facebook, so you guys can add some comments and what have you. So
yeah. So all right. Hey, we want to I think it's time to say farewell, isn't it? Sir?
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Yeah, well, guys, as always, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 55, Catelyn 8.
Yep. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.